Hey everybody, how are you guys? Okay, so this is an ongoing thing. The manhunt is still underway, and they have his house surrounded. Well, there's actually 7 properties on one road, okay, that he has connections to. So, police are issuing search warrants on every one of those properties. They have no idea if he's in any of these houses or not, but they're executing the search warrants, hoping to find any information that they can find. Okay. Now, on my screen, I have pictures of the victims. All right. Let me. Trisha Esselin, Peyton Brewer Ross, Ron Morin, Joshua Seal, Joseph Walker, Bob Violet, and Arthur Strout. Okay, let's not forget. I know there's a lot of talk about him, but let's not forget about the victims. Okay. All right. Now, there's a lot of that I want to go over on this. Hi, hoping for answers. Hi, Casey. All right. So let's pull this up. There's so much going on. I have so many questions. And I mean, do you let me do this first. Sorry, let me pull this up for you guys. I'm trying to pull this stuff up for you, and then I trying to keep the live. Let me pull this up. Hey, Bex. And actually, I talked to somebody I know that lives in Lewiston, Maine. I talked to them earlier today. I called to make sure that them and their family were safe, and they are. But they did know a lot of the victims that were that lost their lives during this massacre. So, you know, we got to keep our hearts and our thoughts with the victims and their families and their friends and the people that this really affects. All right, now. Yeah, it's been all over the place. I said the same thing. First we had 22 victims, and then it was 18, and then they changed it again, and now it's back at 18. So I don't know if people just jump the gun and put out information, you know, before they've actually verified it, but I that's what I think is going on. Okay. So as far as we all know, it's still at 18. All right, I want to go over some of this press conference from earlier, actually. Why is that not? Hold on one second, you guys. Now, there's a lot that I want to talk about with him as well, but let's first listen to this. Now, this was earlier today. I think around, 6:00. Okay. So let me share this with you guys.
Repeat it again. That for 10 years we had a ban on certain kinds of assault weapons, and I supported that ban. And when George W. Bush proposed that it be extended for 10 more years, I supported that effort, which did not succeed. Later, years later, there was an attempt by former Senator Dianne Feinstein to greatly expand the number of weapons that would be covered by that ban. And it was based not on lethality, but more on how they looked, on cosmetic features. And I did not think that that was appropriate. We do have a.
I'm sorry, that's the wrong one. That's not the one I wanted to show you. Okay. I thought that was different. So give me 1 second, you guys. I'm sorry. All right, let me switch over here. Yeah, not a lot of people talk about the victims. It's all about him, but there are a lot of sketchy things, like with the story of what happened. All right, this is where, let's see. See if this will play. Maine mass shooting live updates. Police doing due diligence and manhunt for Maine shooting suspect. Okay, now, hold on, let me get out of this. As I said, they had these, they had the house surrounded, right? But they have no idea. They have no idea if he is in any of these houses or not. They don't know. I mean, the last place you'd think he would be at his home. Okay. Give me just 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. All right, so let me pull this up. For those that don't know the entire story, let me pull this up right here. Maine mass shooting suspect Robert Card, 40, opened fire inside just-in-time recreation bowling alley and Shemengi's Bar and Grill, both in Lewiston, Wednesday evening, killing 18 people and wounding at least 13 officials. Officials said. Police have surrounded a residence of Meadow Road in Bowdoin and announced over a megaphone that they know Card is inside. However, they have come out and said that they have no idea if he's inside, but they are executing search warrants on 7 properties that has ties to Robert. So far, 6 victims who died in the shootings have been identified, plus 2 that were wounded. Bob Violet, 76, a longtime children's bowling instructor, was working with a youth league when the shooter walked into the bowling alley. Joseph Walker, bar manager at Shemengi's Bar and Grill, died trying to stop the gunman, his father told NBC News. Trisha Asselin, 53, worked part-time at Just in Time Recreation, but was bowling for fun when the shooting took place, her brother told CNN. Stephen Vozella, who just got married last year, was at Schmengi's bar for a cornhole tournament for deaf adults. Bill Brackett was also gunned down at the bar cornhole tournament, his family told ABC, and was remembered by a friend on Facebook who wrote, "I'll never forget the laughs I had you in when I was trying to learn some sign language at cornhole." Michael, I don't want to butcher his last name. DeSlauriers the second was bowling with a friend, their wives, and their several young children, whom the 2 husbands protected before charging at the gunman. Wounded, Zoe Hutchinson, 10 years old, who spoke to ABC News the morning after she was grazed by a bullet and took cover with her mother at Just in Time Bowling Alley. And wounded, Justin Karcher, 23, who was on a ventilator in the ICU, where doctors have to keep resuscitating him following emergency surgery, his mother told the Washington Post. 4 years ago, Karcher witnessed his father die in front of him after being gunned down in a Walmart parking lot. Not only did he watch his father die in a shooting in a Walmart parking lot, 4 years ago, but he was just in a shooting last night. Card of Bowdoin, Maine is still on the loose with 8 murder warrants out for his arrest. He should be considered armed and dangerous, officials reiterated Thursday during a news briefing, urging anyone who thinks they've spotted him not to approach and to contact police immediately. At least 13 people were injured in the carnage, officials said at the press conference, though earlier reports had the injured number around 50. 31 minutes ago, investigators found a suicide note in suspected mass killer Robert Card's Maine home Thursday afternoon. The note was reportedly addressed to the 40-year-old military man's son, law enforcement sources close to the investigation told the outlet. It did not contain any insight as to Card's motive for fatally shooting 18 people in Lewiston on Wednesday night. He left a suicide note in his home for his son. Let me go back over to you guys. Yes, it was a gathering. It was a cornhole tournament for deaf adults. And then it was bowling league for children. Hi, Michael. Hey, Mello. Hey, Dr. Mama. I mean, it's totally crazy. Now, just to give you a little insight on Robert Card himself, okay? So he was in the Army Reserves, okay? Now, there's a lot of people saying that he was a firearms instructor. That is not true. He was actually a petroleum expert. Now, I will show you where it says that. And but he was a petroleum expert. Obviously, being in the Army Reserves, he did have, training with weapons. Of course he did, right? But apparently he had lost his hearing during this time. And he had recently been institutionalized up until July of this summer is when he was released. And his sister-in-law said it just went downhill from there. So apparently once he got these hearing aids, that's when he started hearing voices and, he started hearing things. And according to his sister-in-law, he was at the bowling alley and, he's been in a downward spiral ever since July. But he was at the bowling alley and apparently heard voices and thought people were, like talking bad about him and saying this, that, and the other thing, which in turn caused him to apparently flip out and start, shooting up the place. It's so crazy to me. His sister-in-law's like, you could not find a kinder hearted man. Like, he was so kind, up until like the beginning of this year, he didn't have any problems. She's like, he was the nicest guy, and how often do we hear that during these things, right? Afterwards, they're like, oh my God, I never saw this one coming. Like, I would have never thought this would have ever happened. We hear that a lot, but it's like, man. Oh, absolutely. There's a lot of things here that so they found his car last night. They found his car with a gun inside. But he was nowhere to be found. It's like, I don't know what the laws in Maine are, okay? The gun laws in Maine. But I know here in New York State, like if you are institutionalized for any reason at all, you cannot buy a gun, right? And if you're institutionalized here in New York State and they know you have firearms or they like find out you have firearms, or I don't know how really it works. I just know that if you're institutionalized here, they take your guns from you. So I don't know how, I don't know if Maine does not have that law. If they didn't, I'm sure he has all kinds of guns and stuff. But I mean, yeah, I don't really want to get into the whole gun debate because that's not what this is about. This is about a guy being hunted down and needs to be captured because a lot of people lost their lives here. All right, now let me click over here real quick and see if anything. Okay, nothing's new. They're still have the house. They're still looking at this one property. The house is surrounded. The cops are everywhere. They've got drones out in the sky. I mean, and they don't even know if he's in there. And not for nothing, but they're we don't know how this ends, right? He knows. Robert's got to know that it doesn't end well for him either way. So, I mean, he did leave a note. They'd found a note earlier, left the home, came back to the home. If he is in one of these houses, it almost makes you wonder if he didn't already end it himself. And they would have no way of knowing that. Oh, I'm sure I'm sure he has many weapons. Now, I want to take you over here to this interview that they did, and I'm going to tell you why some red flags were raised with me during this interview. Okay. Now, you guys, let me know what you think. Let me stop sharing that, but I don't want to get rid of the screen. Let me move you over here. Okay, here we go. Yes, Maine police are not, they've already said, like, their homicide rates in Maine are so freaking low, and nothing like this has happened in how long? So, they actually had the police training inside, they were doing police training inside the high school. Okay, inside the high school. I want to say it was either the auditorium or the gym, but they had police training exercises going on because their police are just not trained to handle things like this. Although I will say this day and age, they kind of should be prepared for something like this to happen. All right, now I'm going to pull this up. Now, keep in mind that Robert's son is, what did they say, 40 years old? So he's got to be 55, 60 years old. In his 50s for sure. Now, I want to share this. Oh my goodness. I was just talking about that with my mother-in-law today. A lot that has happened to a lot of people. Past military experiences, hearing voices. It makes you wonder if it's not a, project gone wrong. I'll just say that. Okay, actually, let me look. Okay, so no, he's 40. My bad. Robert is 40. Okay. But this guy has got to be in his 20s. Now just check this interview out and let me know what you guys are thinking.
Community, there's kind of like a.
And we understand that you grew up near Robert Card and his family.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us anything you know about the person of interest in these shootings?
Well, I grew up about half a mile away. Bowdoin is a very interesting community. There's kind of like a center hub near the school and the town store, excuse me. And then you have like West Bowdoin, but they all interconnect around the school and the town store. And I just happen to live near there. And the family complex, it's basically a compound. The family and Robert, they're all gun fanatics. They, for all intents and purposes, are very much associated with right-wing militias. It's known in the town to stay away from them and to.
Okay, I want to pause it right there for 1 second. Now, this guy very could well be a total lunatic. Obviously, he's got some mental issues if he is on a shooting rampage and doing things like this. I understand that. It's just when they push their agenda into the reporting is when I have a problem, right? They're like, oh, he's very right-winged, very far right-winged, gun crazy lunatic, basically. I mean, they put the agenda right out there in the thing, and that's what I cannot stand, because then you're not being, real. You're not being truthful. What you're doing is trying to push an agenda, if you guys know what I'm saying here. Okay, now.
Not approach them. If you see them, you just turn around and walk away. I remember going to the town store when I was a kid, about, around 12, 14. And I remember very vividly, it's just been the image that's been kind of going around in my head, is I'm going to the store and there's a way station there for deer. So he had just killed a deer with his buddies, and the deer was hanging and blood was dripping on the ground from the deer, and he was covered in blood with a gun on his back with a giant grin on his face. And they were all smoking cigarettes and drinking their morning coffee.
Okay. Now, I did want to address this little bit right here, because you've already pointed out that you think that people who are, into firearms are, some kind of right-wing extremist, right? Now, this young man is on here talking about how Robert and his buddies were at a way station and they had the deer. Yes, they were cleaning the deer. They had the deer hanging there. He had blood all over him. They were smoking cigarettes and drinking coffee, and he had a smile on his face. I mean, not for nothing, but let's just say, I mean, he could have been smiling just because he bagged himself a freaking deer and had food for the winter. I'm just saying, when they don't put that into it, just tell you know what I'm saying? They're like trying to paint this picture. Just report. Just report. Like, there's nothing wrong with somebody being happy that they bag themselves a deer. That's all I'm saying. So I think this kid took it in the way wrong direction. And of course, that was the whole point of it, right? I mean, he's got to be at least, I mean, he's much younger than Robert, for sure.
And like praising each other. And also they would shoot guns all the time. Like, you could hear them every day after school. It was like clockwork. You could hear them shooting guns, and the sound would ricochet off the valley. I could even hear it at elementary school. At times, you could hear them shooting guns.
Liam, real quickly here, we only have a few seconds, but this is a close-knit community. Do you have friends who were injured last night?
Yes, there are some friends of mine that have been injured. I know there was a baby that was killed at the bowling alley. It was a children's bowling night. So I do know that happened. I'm not going to give any information out until the police officially release the names. But there's going to be a lot of heartache and tragedy that comes from this.
Well, Liam, Kent, we appreciate you taking some time. Continue to stay safe, and we'll make sure to check back in with you, okay?
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks for.
Okay, yes. I'm not saying he's not a bad guy. I'm not saying he doesn't have a lot of screws loose up there. I understand. I'm not saying that he didn't commit this awful tragic thing. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that people read so much into things like, oh my God, he's a hunter. Oh my God, he was cleaning a deer and he was not completely, repulsed by the sight of the blood. I mean, it's just stuff like that. Okay. Now, let's move on, because this guy does need to be caught, and he does need to be, he does need to answer for everything that he has done. Let me see if hold on one second, you guys. Okay. All right, now let's move on. Oh, not that one, sorry.
And that is that police and FBI agents are searching a property in Bowdoin. That is the town where Card and many of his family members live. We have complete team coverage for you tonight, covering every single angle of the story. But let's begin with Brandon Truitt, who just arrived on that search scene just a short time ago. Brandon?
Well, David, we are on West Road in Bowdoin. It is incredibly rural and wooded area. We're about 13 miles from where you're at. And just down the road here is what's believed to be Robert Card's house. And I can tell you, we have been seeing the ATF, the FBI, increasing their presence really by the minute here. As you can see, these cars just essentially lined up here. The driveway they're focusing on is down to the left. I want to show you what it looks like from overhead. The Sky Eye was here just moments ago, and you can see dozens of officers, weapons, bulletproof vests outside of this home. We have watched them come in and out of there. Now, CBS News now reporting that a note of some kind was found inside Card's house. That's according to one U.S. official who's been briefed on this search. That source saying that this was simply not a suicide note, but they wouldn't elaborate any further than that. Again, police continuing to increase their presence here on this very, very quiet neighborhood. I made my way down to a couple of homes here, and I've got to tell you, people are staying inside, their doors are locked, and their blinds are closed. This is a kind of scene that on some stories like this draws a public spectacle. That is just not the case here. Of course, Card still on the run at this point. But David, we'll send it back to you.
Okay. I just think at this point, like, I mean, he's got to know that there's no way this does not end well for him. And he left a note. So he's probably, I mean, he's probably already gone and he's probably already taken care of it himself. I mean, I'm sure even if you were, you know, if he was a really good guy, like his sister-in-law said, right? And even until he had his mental break, I'm sure that exactly, Dr. Mama. I'm sure though that once he, you know, come down from whatever it is that happened to him, once that break, you know, I'm not really sure mentally what had happened, but even he's got to realize what he's done. And how do you live with that? Right? How do you live with that? Okay, now let me pull up. Oh, hoping for answers. Thank you so much for the donation. It's greatly appreciated. Anybody else who wants to donate, the links are all down in the description below. Okay. I just didn't want to forget to say that. And you guys consider becoming a member. We're behind the scenes. We're doing a lot of work to our memberships and planning and stuff. We're going to have a lot coming up for our members. So please consider joining and becoming a member. So they've been outside this house for a long time. But let me read this to you. Law enforcement officials are outside the Lewiston shooting suspect's last known address and have been heard saying, "Come out with your hands up," according to CNN teams on the scene. CNN does not know to whom law enforcement officials were speaking at the home in Bowdoin. Authorities are not positive Robert Card is in his house, and we are simply doing our due diligence. Maine Department of Public Safety spokesperson Shannon Moss told CNN Thursday evening. At least 5 law enforcement vehicles, including an armored vehicle, are on scene. Police have told CNN and other media to turn off their lights because those lights were creating a dangerous situation for officers. An extensive manhunt is underway for suspect. Okay. The arrest warrant has been issued. Shelter in place order. Card's family is urging him to surrender. His brother, Ryan Card, confirmed to CNN via text message he would not tell CNN if his brother has responded to the family's request. "We have helped law enforcement in any way possible," Ryan Card told CNN. The police have been given anything that we can offer to facilitate their efforts. And there are many people hurting out there. Please focus on them. This is many people's worst nightmare. Some in the area woke up Thursday to officers with long guns scouring the neighborhoods. Nerves are rattled right now. I'm keeping an eye on the woods, said Corey, a resident of Lisbon, whose 10-year-old daughter was inside his home. Seeing the cops coming around here, that makes me feel a million times better. With a death toll of 18, the rampage appears to be the deadliest mass shooting of the year in the United States and the deadliest since a gunman killed 19 students and 2 teachers at a school in Uvalde, Texas in May 2022. There have been 565 mass shootings this year across the country with 4 or more shots, with 4 or more shot, excluding the shooter. Of the 18 victims in Lewiston, 7 were found dead at the bowling alley, Just in Time Recreation, and 8 were found dead at Schemengees Bar and Grill, while 3 others died at the hospital. Central Maine Medical Center took in 14 patients over 45 minutes Wednesday evening. Chief Medical Officer Dr. John Alexander said at a midday news conference Thursday, 8 patients are still hospitalized, including 3 in critical condition and 5 in stable condition. In addition, 3 died, 2 were discharged, and 1 was transferred. This is a dark day for Maine, Mills said at the news conference. It's hard for us to think about healing when our hearts are broken. Card faces an arrest warrant for 8 counts of murder. Ross of Maine State Police said 10 victims have not yet been identified. As those people are identified, the counts will probably go to the total of 18. By Thursday morning, the entire Lisbon Police Department had been called into the hunt for the shooter and make sure businesses were closed. We want to locate the individual, make sure our community is kept safe, McGee said. So biggest thing I can say is make sure that if the community sees anything, stay inside, don't approach, call the police department. Now, how the shooting unfolded. The rampage began shortly before 7 p.m. in Lewiston, a largely working class community located midway between Portland, the state's most populous city, and Augusta, the state capital. Authorities said they received 911 calls of a shooting at Just in Time Recreation. Now, here's where I have some questions, okay? But let me read this to you. Hold on. Let me make sure I don't miss anything because I can't see any of this when I'm reading that. Mello, I was going to say that. Okay. Are we all sure that he's doing all this? So much for one guy or person who is behind this. It's crazy, Michael. It's crazy. Okay. Authorities said they received 911 calls of a shooting at Just in Time Recreation, a bowling alley on Mollison Way at 6:56 p.m. 12 minutes later, authorities received multiple 911 calls about an active shooter at Schemengees Bar and Grill restaurant about 4 miles away. Okay. Now listen to this, okay? So they received 911 calls from the bowling alley at 6:56 p.m. All right. 12 minutes later, authorities received multiple 911 calls about an active shooter at Schemengees Bar and Grill, 4 miles away. Now, 4 miles would be about 10 minutes in a vehicle. Okay. So the shooter had to get from the bowling alley to Schemengees, which is about a 10-minute drive, they said. And here's my thing. So did the first call come out of the bowling alley after he had left the bowling alley? If that's the case, say he had just walked out of the bowling alley and somebody called 911. So he's got 10 minutes. It's going to take him 10 minutes to get to Schemengees Bar and Grill from the bowling alley. 2 minutes later, there's multiple 911 calls saying there's an active shooter at the bar and grill. So from the time that the police, now this is my thing. So he left the bowling alley sometime around 6:56 p.m. when the first 911 call was made. The cops should have already been on their way to the bowling alley, right? 4 miles away is the restaurant. Now, you would think that they would have cops coming from this road. You know, they'd have cops coming from the right and cops coming from the left to meet up at the bowling alley. But nobody saw him, and he was not intercepted from the bowling alley down to the restaurant, which was again 10 minutes away. So from the once the 911 calls came in from the restaurant, the cops headed to the restaurant, right? They had to send more cops there, but he was able to get away from there, and then he hasn't been seen since. I mean, that's crazy to me. Ross said there was a large response from multiple agencies in what he described as a fluid scene. People ran away from just-in-time recreation as police cruisers responded to the scene. Video obtained by CNN shows a person on a stretcher was loaded into an ambulance. Another video from outside the bowling alley shows. Now, here's a short video from outside the bowling alley. Oh, CNN's probably going to freaking... Let me play it for you anyway.
We did see somebody that looked like they had blood all over them. We couldn't tell if that person was injured themselves, but definitely the person in the middle of this person and another, they were helping her. I'm not sure, kind of helping them, and they were bent over a little bit, and it looked like they were actually bleeding from like their stomach or somewhere in the front area.
Did you see any of the people coming out of the bowling alley carrying anyone?
Not that I can recall. I mean, it's all kind of a blur. I wasn't really taking in a lot of the details. I honestly did not think that this was going to be as big as it turned out to be, especially not going all through Lewiston the way it has.
All right, now let me do this. Let me check something real quick, guys. Give me just a second. Okay, so the police have just left the home. They are done searching the home. They have just left. All right, now I wanted to go over here. Sorry, guys. Let me go over here. And let me scroll back down here. And let me share this screen with you. Oh, okay, good. I'm still sharing it. What a freaking idiot. Okay. I've been in Maine every summer throughout my youth. This is something that never happens in Maine. There's a reason. All right, now let me... Okay. So here's the map. Here's the bowling alley. Okay. Here's the bar and grill restaurant. Nicole Wyman, Errol, was on her way home with her daughter from a Girl Scout meeting when she saw police lights and ambulances around the bowling alley and people running. At least one person looked to be covered in blood. Now, that was the woman that you just heard talking. Errol and her daughter saw officers patting people down as they came out of the bowling alley. There were kids. Looking back, that was probably the hardest part, is seeing just families. Families pouring out of there, Errol said, and knowing that happened in there while they were just probably trying to have a family night. When she got home, Errol locked up the house, including windows, she said. Her daughter was scared somebody was going to come into our home. A vehicle of interest was found Wednesday night, 8 miles from Lewiston in Lisbon, prompting shelter-in-place orders for that area. Maine Director of Public Safety Michael Shishuk said. A U.S. Coast Guard official told CNN they are looking for any suspicious vessel right now as they search from the air and on the water for Card. Law enforcement officials found Card's vehicle abandoned at the Pajepska boat launch in Lisbon, Maine. Public records show he owns a small powerboat. Investigators recovered a gun while searching the vehicle, a law enforcement official told CNN on Thursday. It has not been determined if the firearm was used in the shooting, the source said. Federal agents are conducting a trace on the weapon. Several of the victims have already been identified, and those were the ones that I told you about. What I'm told is that when it all started happening, she ran up to the counter and started to call 911, and that's when she was shot, Johnson told CNN. That was just her. She wasn't going to run away. She was going to try and help. His other sister, Bobby Nichols. Oh, okay, sorry. Trisha Aslan, 53, was one of those killed. She worked part-time at Just in Time Recreation and was there bowling Wednesday night when the gunman came in and opened fire. Her brother, DJ Johnson, told CNN. So, okay, what I'm told is when it all started happening, she ran up to the counter and started to call 911, and that's when she was shot. She was going to try and help. His other sister, Bobby Nichols, also was at the bowling alley and was able to escape. Nichols told CNN's Jake Tapper on Thursday that she and Aslan were bowling with leagues on different lanes when the gunfire started. She described a chaotic scene where people ran and trampled over each other. She was unable to see her sister. When Nichols got outside the bowling alley, she ran and eventually hid behind trees with others. I kept asking, "Where's my sister?" "She's in there, and I just wanted to be with my sister," Nichols said tearfully. Nichols, who said Aslan called 911 when shots rang out, didn't find learn her sister had died until hours after the shooting. "My sister is a hero." Leroy Walker, a city councilor in Auburn, told CNN affiliate WGME that his son, Joseph Walker, was the manager of the bar at Schmangy's and died in the shooting there. Walker said state police told his son's wife that Joseph was killed after he picked up a knife and went after the gunman to try and stop him. Walker said his son's death took him back to about 25 years ago when he lost his daughter in a car accident. My gosh. When my youngest son told me that he thought his brother, my son, was dead, it just crumbled me all over again. You know, his sister-in-law said, so when they had first heard about the shootings, let me go over here so I can see you guys. When they had first heard about the shootings, the sister-in-law said, "My gosh, I hope it's not Robert." And then when they found out the places that were shot up, the bowling alley and the restaurant, they immediately started thinking that it was him because he obviously had some kind of affiliation with the bowling alley and with the restaurant. So it does, it makes you wonder what those affiliations were, why he targeted those places at that moment, So the police don't even know that he is the shooter or making him to be out to be the shooter here. I mean, they believe it's him. And they said that he left a suicide note. So, and they have that picture of him, that still shot picture. You know how they do. So that's what they're going off of. I mean, I'm sure they have a lot more information that obviously we don't have right now. But let me see if I can pull this up for you guys real quick. Give me just a second. Let me see if I can pull this up for you. Don't go anywhere, guys. Just give me 1 second. I don't know if I can do this or not. Okay, I don't know. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna find out if I can play this for you guys or not. Okay. I just want to make sure I can play it. Okay. I don't know who owns the two places, the two businesses. I don't know, but he did have affiliations with those two places because the sister-in-law said as soon as we found out what two places this happened at, we knew it was him. So I don't know if he had beef with somebody there, if he had problems with, I don't know, because the police haven't released any of that information yet. I'm assuming that they're going to do a press conference at some point. But I don't know if I can stream. I don't know if I can play this for you guys. I want to because I just don't know if I can. Let me read this. Of course, it doesn't say. Okay, you know what? Whatever. If I have to pull it, I'll have to pull it. All right, let me share this screen with you guys. I think, though, that if I put them in the... We'll see.
8 charges of murder. It could be 10 more as police continue to identify some of the victims in this shooting. But again, they are continuing this manhunt for Robert Card. And at this point, what we know is that police have confirmed 18 people are dead, 13 are injured. The shelter in place remains in Bowdoin, Lisbon, and Lewiston. And again, Androscoggin County kind of doing an umbrella for the entire county, asking people to stay where they are. Don't go anywhere if you don't have to.
And tonight was a good reminder of that, of what we watched unfold in Bowdoin, is
Right.
that there is still that, from the last messages we got from police, there is still that concern out there that this individual is considered armed and dangerous and not in custody. And that is the part that those hundreds of members of law enforcement from across Maine and New England are here working on right now. We saw some of that. I'm sure that is just a small fraction of the force that is in our communities that we may or may not even see looking for him right now.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and a moment that we kind of had to take a breath since we've been on the air since this first happened well over 24 hours ago was when NBC Nightly News was on, and we all kind of stopped and looked that the national news was live in Maine covering this tragedy. In fact, Jack Molmid spoke to Lester Holt shortly after Nightly News. I believe that we have that sound for you. Take a listen.
What do you hope people watch and are able to take away at the end of this? We hope, we pray that some resolution comes with this, that we find the guy.
Well, sure. I mean, that's the number one thing, obviously, resolution to get him off the streets. But, this will provoke conversations. Some of them we've had before about guns and mental health. But I think that the mental health component is one I think that's going to draw a lot of attention. It's a conversation that needs to be had. And there's plenty of folks who have ways to bring it to action. But I think that's going to be part of the story. warning signs, how they were dealt with. That's the kind of stuff that we need to learn from. And it's our job as journalists to keep that story out there and provoke that conversation.
For sure. That sounds great. Anything else you feel like that might be worthwhile in this conversation?
No, it's just, one of the, when I go to cities, that have been devastated by, mass shootings, people, they're very personal. They want to protect the image of their town. And I always point out, it's not a measure of a city or of a region. It's just something that happened in that particular place, not because of that place. At least that's my experience. I've traveled to so many lovely places, lovely people who have just suffered this unspeakable kind of horror. And what makes it awful as we report it is that we know that we'll be out somewhere else at some point. And I hate to be Debbie Downer, but that's the reality of these things. That we will be in another community, and I'll be having, unfortunately, the same conversation with another reporter.
I've been a reporter for 3 years now, and this would come one day, but it's shocking.
Yeah, it is. When you're on the anchor desk and you're reporting these kind of stories, that I was last night. You kind of take a deep breath because.
Okay. Yeah, I can't do that. Let me pull this up for you guys. I want to try to share any new information with you guys that comes out. So give me just 1 second. Okay, 10 minutes ago. Let me share this. All right, now this was 10 minutes ago. Bowling alley manager identified as one of the victims of the Lewiston mass shootings. Tommy Conrad, 34, was identified as one of the victims of the Lewiston, Maine mass shootings. His family confirmed to CNN affiliate WMTW. Conrad was the manager at the bowling alley, one of the 2 locations of last night's shooting rampage. He is survived by his 9-year-old daughter. Well, you know what's crazy to me is it seems to me that the bowling alley and the restaurant were the targets, because this all happened last night, and he has not killed anybody like today. Like, he has not gone in and shot any places up today. So it seems to me like he had a whatever in his mind, and his target was the bowling alley and the restaurant. And I mean, for all we know right now, he could be gone. He could have already taken his own life. I mean, they did find a suicide note. So it makes you wonder, like, could he have already ended it somewhere? And all this manhunt and all these people out there searching right now, but they can only go off the information they have at the time. I wanted to try to find this. Oh, yeah, let me play this video for you that I watched earlier today. Give me 1 second, you guys. Please hit that like button for me. I don't often do these things live. Like, I usually wait and then report, talk to you guys after it happens. But this one, it's just very hard. This was. Okay, right here. What is playing now? Hold on. What? Sorry. I don't know why that started playing again. Okay, right over here.
In Maine, we just heard a press conference, and you heard from Vlad a lot of the details that were revealed in that press conference. Robert Card, a 40-year-old man, has gone from a person of interest to a suspect facing murder charges. We know that there were 2 locations that the shootings occurred at, and we got a little more detail about when the shootings happened. The initial 911 calls came in at just 6:56 last night at the Just-in-Time Recreational Center in Lewiston. There, 7 people were killed, 6 men and 1 woman. And then just 7:08, really not long after the first series of 911 calls, another location, a Smenji's, which is, they called it a Smenji's Billiards. It's sort of like a restaurant as well. 8 men killed, 1 inside, and the rest of them, 1 outside rather, and the rest of them inside the facility. 3 other people, several people were transported to hospital, but 3 people died at the hospital, bringing the total number of dead to 18, 13 injured. The police would not talk about the ages. They weren't prepared to give out that information, but they have released information about Robert Card earlier today. A little bit of information about his level of training in terms of firearms. He is not a firearms instructor, but he is part of the Army Reserve, and he's described as a petroleum expert. So our Elaine Keanu has been covering this story on the ground for us, and we want to take you there. We also have Charles Marino standing by. He's a former Homeland Security Department advisor and agent. But I'm going to start with you, Elaine. This is something that can rock any community, but particularly in Maine, where they don't have a lot of homicides.
That's exactly right. And I spoke with one resident this morning who basically, when I asked him, have you ever had anything comparable like this happen here? He said, absolutely not. This is just a quiet, peaceful, rural community. He kind of described it as a big, small town. Folks kind of know each other here. Or they know of each other. And so you can only imagine just how quickly the news of this has spread and the devastation for the families of the victims. So much pain, and yet this search is ongoing. So even as this community begins to deal with coming to terms with what happened, there is an active search underway. And we heard in that news conference just a short time ago that this individual, now a suspect, as you said, Robert Card, is considered armed and dangerous, not to be approached, obviously, at all. And so that, as you can only imagine, is only adding to the absolute
Casey,
level
thank
of
you for
fear
the 5
and
months, hon.
anxiety,
Love you.
as this manhunt continues.
And
Totally
so
appreciate
are people
it.
still being instructed to shelter in place? What are they hearing from police there?
So they are, but you'll see that every so often there are cars that are going by behind me here. That's because this is sort of a main artery, a lot of truck traffic. A lot of vehicles have been going back and forth. However, if you kind of go just beyond this main road, you'd see that there really isn't anything open. Empty parking lots of businesses, empty parking lots of restaurants. It is the middle of the day, a time when you might expect to see businesses with their doors open, welcoming customers. That is not the case here in Lewiston right now. So there is a very palpable sense of fear and anxiety. As I said, some folks here saying, they're still really, frankly, in disbelief that something like this could happen here.
And I'm just sort of looking quickly, Elaine, at the president's statement. And of course, the president says, once again, our nation is mourning after yet another senseless and tragic mass shooting. Today, Jill and I are praying for the Americans who have lost their lives, for those still in critical care, and for their families, survivors, and community members enduring shock and grief. He goes on further down in the statement to say, while we had made progress on gun safety through the bipartisan Safer Communities Act, the 24 executive actions I've taken and the establishment of the first ever White House Office of Gun Violence Prevention, it is simply not enough. And Elaine, it sort of brings me to the gun laws in Maine. And during the press briefing, a couple of reporters asked, how does somebody dealing with mental health issues get their hands on a gun? But the truth of the matter is, in Maine, in terms of, there's not a lot restricting you from getting your hands on a gun.
Yeah, that's right. And so you heard the officials say they're looking at all those questions. And this is an issue that we should note is not unique to this community, right?
Mm-hmm.
How many times have we talked about these kinds of issues in other incidents? So it is certainly not something that is unique, something that, though, is always scrutinized in these kinds of situations. What are those laws surrounding firearms? What laws could have prevented this?
Mm-hmm.
It is certainly something that we always hear debated in, unfortunately, what has become an all too common event in this country.
Definitely. So listen, Charles, let me pivot over to you because you know what police are going through right now. They are looking for this man, Robert Card. Initially, they had released information about him being a firearms instructor. It turns out that's not the case, but he is in the reserves. He's got an active military ID. And from the way he looks like he's holding the gun, it looks like he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, there's an obvious familiarity and comfort with weapon handling. You can tell that by the photo that's been released. What I can tell you is I expected to hear what we heard in the press conference. The state police are now very clearly identified as the lead agency, working with the Lewiston police and being augmented by federal agencies and other local police in the area. Updates on victims. Unfortunately, those that have been injured, some may continue to pass. So we'll expect continuous updates on that. And the fact that Mr. Card is now a identified suspect going from a person of interest now that the arrest warrant's been issued. What I can tell you, though, based on the fact that this is a rapid and ongoing investigation, there is information about the individual that they're just not going to want to release or that they don't know. And I think you heard that transparently during the press conference, that this is so rapidly evolving that they are conducting the investigation, not just in Maine, but across other states to get as much information on the background of this individual as possible. And finally, they will issue a BOLO, a be on the lookout, for any type of vehicle mode of transport associated and available to this suspect, right? They're going to cast as wide a net as they can and make sure that local authorities have that information. Technology is put in place, like license plate readers, to capture that in the event that he's on the run in a vehicle.
Yeah, you know, well, we point out that we had gotten some information yesterday. They had to issue a correction. So I'm sure moving forward, they want to be really careful about what they say about this investigation. But some of the details that they gave us yesterday sort of didn't really dive too much into during the press briefing was about his mental health status. That according to police, there had been mental health issues, including hearing voices, and had possibly threatened to shoot up a military installation in southern Maine. What are some of the factors that influence the way this search will unfold? Or I guess the question that I am asking is, when you have somebody who knows his way around a gun and maybe in the middle of a mental health crisis, does that have an impact on the way the investigation or the search for him unfolds?
Well, I think right now the priority is to locate him. And I think there's no doubt, Amory, that authorities will go back and dissect what took place previously with respect to his mental health and any engagement with law enforcement. These are the common two areas where, unfortunately, in these types of situations, we see a gap in information sharing. Now, you brought up local laws. They do play a role. Maine does not have a red flag law that allows mental health officials to take action. They have what's called a yellow flag law, which means law enforcement are the only people that can take action regarding the removal of weapons from somebody suffering a mental health crisis. So the big question and the obvious question is, did mental health officials share information with law enforcement? Did law enforcement know what was going on with this individual regarding his weapons and how many weapons he had registered to himself?
Right. All really good questions. I was also, struck by the locations for these two mass shootings. Just in Time Recreation Center, Schmegley's Billiards Hall. I mean, no, it's in the middle of the week, but these are sort of family-friendly places.
Well, I can tell you they're soft targets, right? They're not going to have much. They're not going to have much in the way of security. The suspect likely knew that, pre-planned this attack. And look, it's a small town, and these were likely two popular places. So they became, based on the number of people that gather at these spots, high-value targets for this suspect. And so he knows the area. He knew where to go to carry out this attack. He knew that there would be little resistance in the way of security, and he had an escape plan. He knew exactly what he was going to do after he carried out the attack, and now he's on the run. So just because somebody is suffering from a mental health crisis, and I've got a lot of experience in dealing with people, unfortunately, that suffer from this, but they're still able to formulate a plan of attack. So you have to look, do they maintain the competency to formulate a plan and carry that out with the mental health crisis in the background, driving them to make very, very poor decisions, but to take violent actions. But the fact that they can formulate the plan, the fact that they may have resources available to them, all of this goes towards the actual threat level that they present, not only during the attack, but after the attack.
Charles, makes a whole lot of sense when you talk about having a plan. He moved really quickly between those two locations. Elaine, quickly, during the press conference, we saw a lot of people standing up there. Which agencies are involved in this investigation?
Yeah, so we know among them, right, a number of federal agencies, including the U.S. Marshals, ATF, Alcohol, Tobacco and Firearms agents, the FBI.
Hi, Mom.
It's interesting, Emery, as we were standing here just a moment ago, we saw with its lights on, going down the road here very quickly, a Department of Homeland Security vehicle, a marked vehicle followed by an unmarked vehicle. They were speeding along in this direction behind me here, unclear what that was about. But it just goes to the enormous amount of resources being poured into this search right now.
Charles Marino and Elaine Cano, thank you so much. Well, the new Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, spoke to
Okay, now I want to pull this up. This was just posted 10 minutes ago. Oh, God, that cat scared the shit out of me. Hey, get down. What are you doing? Cat. Hold on. Okay, can you? Okay, I'm back. Yes, the freaking cat disconnected me. Jumped up on my computer, pushed all kinds of buttons, and then my whole thing shut down. Okay. Man. All right, now let me pull this up for you guys. Oi. Oh, for God's sakes. Okay. What we know so far. At least 18 people are dead and 13 are injured after shootings at a bar and bowling alley in Lewiston. Police named Robert Card, 40, as a suspect in the shootings, and an arrest warrant on murder charges has been issued. He remains at large. 7 people were found dead at the Just-in-Time Recreation Bowling Alley. 8 were found dead at Schmenge's Bar and Grill, and there were pronounced dead at area hospitals. Officials have urged residents of Lewiston, Maine's second largest city, about 30 miles north of Portland and nearby Auburn, to shelter in place. Residents in other communities have also been asked to stay put, and many schools and businesses are closed. Now, let me go down here because it talks about the let's read this. Maine Governor Janet Mills said her administration is launching a website to make it easier for those affected by the mass shootings to get mental health support. Incidents of mass violence can lead to a range of emotional reactions, including anxiety, fear, anger, despair, and a sense of helplessness that may begin immediately or in the days or weeks following the event. Okay, bar shooting suspect has been there before, father of slain manager says. Robert Card, the man suspected of killing 18 people in mass shootings at a bar and bowling alley, had been to the bar before, the father of the slain manager there said. All of the people over there know him. Leroy Walker told NBC News, Lester Holt, he would actually come to Schmenge's. I don't know if it's Schmenge's or Smenge's. I've heard it both ways. He'd been there off and on. Walker said his son Joseph, Joey Walker, who was the manager at the restaurant, was killed. Leroy Walker said he did not know Card personally, but had seen him before. The manhunt for Card continues. Now let me play this little video up here. No, I'm going to strangle you, kitty. Stop it. Obviously not really, guys. Just a joke. It just tried to disconnect me again, you guys. For crying out loud. All right, let me see if... Why can't I make this bigger?
Finally, one more American community is suffering through the horrors of a mass shooting. This one here in Maine. It's a place our Cynthia McFadden knows well.
Though it's home to Bates College, Lewiston is not exactly a quaint college town, nor is it what lots of people may think of as a quintessential Maine town. No lobster boats or rocky shore, no major tourist economy to speak of. It does, however, have its own natural beauty. I grew up in Auburn, Maine, the twin city of Lewiston, LA as locals call them, 2 towns, 1 community that sit across the Androscoggin River from each other. When I was growing up, if the wind was blowing just right, you could smell the river before you could see it. It was so polluted by decades of cotton and paper mills using it for power. We weren't famous for very much, but all eyes were on Lewiston in 1965 when Sonny Liston was knocked out by a 23-year-old Muhammad Ali. Lewiston is a blue-collar and middle-class family kind of place. People tend to their own business there, but rally around when someone's... And tonight, my Maine people are safe tonight, sheltering in homes I remember from childhood, but too many of our friends and neighbors will never go home again. So tonight, we lead the news. Another gunman took the lives of more innocents in one more town where we thought it could never happen. Cynthia McFadden, NBC News.
All right, guys. This cat has tried to get up here again. Maine Attorney General Aaron Frey said that his heart continues to ache for the loss of life and infliction of harm perpetrated on the people of Lewiston last night, and that his office is prepared to vigorously prosecute these heinous acts of violence. As citizens across this state mourn the tragic and senseless events that occurred almost 24 hours ago, it is important to give law enforcement the space it requires to conduct its work in this continuing and developing situation. He encouraged the public to continue abiding by all shelter-in-place orders. Our public safety and law enforcement officials are working tirelessly to follow leads and gather information in order to apprehend the suspect, and our collective support in these ways is crucial. He expressed every confidence in law enforcement agencies leading the manhunt and the investigation and said they are using all assets to locate Card. Let me do this. Okay, let me get out of here. All right, so I mean, they haven't caught him. He has not been seen, heard from, spotted since that we know of. I mean, the police could have a lot more information than we do, obviously. So all that we know so far is that he ditched his car last night. The gun was found in the car. No spottings today. And they found a suicide note written to his son in his home. I mean, I only see one way that this ends. So I'll try to keep you guys updated. Hopefully this is all put to an end soon and the families can begin their healing. But I want to pull this picture back up real quick. Let me do that. Oh, for crying out loud. Let me share this. Yeah, I think that's how they'll find him as well. I agree. But these are the victims here. These people that lost their life and will never get to spend time with their children, their grandchildren, their parents, their aunts, their uncles, their friends. Nothing. Never got a chance to say goodbye. If it teaches you anything, it teaches you that life is so freaking short. When you talk to people, when you talk to your friends, when you talk to your family, always do it like it's going to be the last time, because you never know when that last time is going to be. Peyton just became a father. This man right here just became a father. And he'll never get to see his child grow up. Grandkids won't get to see grandpa come home. Grandma doesn't get to walk back home today. I mean, let's remember the victims that were lost. You know, I think, can we just take a moment in silence here on this channel? can we just take a moment in silence and send our thoughts and our prayers to the victims and their families? Let's just take a minute. Everybody throw some praying hands in the chat for me. All right, you guys, I'm going to end this one here. I'll post any updates that we can find. I hope this all ends and these families can begin their long, long journey of healing. But seriously, just life is short. We never know when it's going to be the last time. I say it every day when I leave my house to go to the store. I always give all my kids a hug and a kiss before I leave. I tell them I love them before I walk out that door, because today there's a good chance that I might not walk back in. So just love and spread positivity and spread happiness and spread joy. Yes, sending good vibes to everybody. You know, we gotta make this world a better place. We gotta learn to do better. We gotta learn to be better and to treat people better. There is no reason for senseless shit like this to happen. I love you guys. Stay strong, stay healthy, stay safe. Keep asking those hard questions. Keep spreading that light. I will see you guys next time. I love you all. Have a good night. Thank you all for being here. Please like, comment below, and share this video. Anybody who wants to do anything extra, please, the links are down in the description below. I love you guys. Have an awesome night. Tell somebody you love them.